Happy Black History Month. Very excited to be here with another leader in the city of Hartford in honor of Black History Month. This platform is an opportunity for people to get to know the leaders in our organization, to get to know them more in depth and get to have a better understanding as to why they do the work that they do, what their motivators are, and what their background is. So, very honored to have the Director of Health and Human Services, Ebony Jackson-Shaheed, here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of our conversation. The things that leaders have shared with us so far have been deeply inspiring, deeply moving. And so we're looking forward to having a conversation with you in particular because you're a bit newer to the City of Hartford team. Can you tell us a bit about your hometown, your family of origin, and how long you've worked at the City of Hartford?
Sure. So I have been here now for a full 8 months. So very excited about that. Um, I am originally from New Haven, Connecticut, born and raised. So I have been here the majority of my life. There have been a couple of times where we traveled outside of Connecticut because my father was in the military. So a lot of people like to say I'm a military brat. My dad was in the military for 30 years. So we did some traveling, but I did the majority of my schooling in New Haven. So born and raised in New Haven. My family is from Connecticut. Especially my father's family, they have been here since, on paper, recorded since the 1700s. We have documentation that goes all the way back to that. They are Native American as well, so we have lots of documentation on their family. So I am actually really from Connecticut. Parts of my family are really from Connecticut. So I am a Connecticutor. And I mean, I'm just excited to be here. But yeah, I've been here 8 months. Been in the public health arena in some form of another for a little over, I'd say, 10 years. But public health and health in general or science is my passion.
Awesome. So you say that on your father's side, been in Connecticut since the 1700s?
Yes. Yeah.
And then how about on your mother's side?
So on my mother's side, so I identify as African American. That is my race. I am a Black woman. But ethnic wise, my ethnicity, I have a few ethnicities in my family, and I also say I am an African woman because on my mother's side of the family, we are from Cape Verde, which is a West African country.
Mhm. Absolutely. I think we have actually another leader in the city of Hartford whose family is also from Cape Verde. Now that you're saying that, people got to get their globe, get their map. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Awesome. And you've been at the city of Hartford for about 8 months. So just a little like a city of Hartford toddler, essentially.
I I
I
am.
love that. Can you tell us a little bit about what attracted you to the city of Hartford and this role in particular?
I think, to be honest with you, everyone wants to work in the Capitol. So when I got the opportunity, of course, I jumped at it. Everyone wants to be here. I think this is a place to be. There's lots of opportunities in the Capitol, and there's lots of history here. Just being, born and raised in Connecticut, I think that it's a dream for everyone who this is calls Connecticut their home, right? And to be honest with you, it feels a lot like home. Before coming to Hartford, I was in Bridgeport. And to be honest with you, it felt very similar to home as well. I think that's one thing that's not unique for urban cities. I think a lot of urban areas, just have that similar feeling. And to be honest with you, that's where I feel comfortable. And I think it's just reminiscent of the way I was, grew up, things that are nostalgic to me about Connecticut. And Hartford is just one of those places where I feel comfortable. And I think also I enjoy the diversity that happens in, urban epicenters around Connecticut. And so that's where I tend to lean in on.
Ebony, I love you. I love that you said, "Oh, everybody wants to be here in the capital city." I never actually thought about it that way, right? That's why it's really great to be able to have different vantage points and perspectives. And to be like, of course, who doesn't want to be in the capital? And now I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Who doesn't want to be here? It's the place to be. That's incredible. We spoke with another leader who came to us from the city of New Haven who said something very similar about Hartford feeling, very familiar, very
Mhm.
comfortable, very much like home, and also touched on the same thing as in terms of it being um, really diverse and, being a place that they love to come and, enjoy their dining and do their sort of like their dancing and all of that stuff, even before they actually worked in the city of Hartford. So, wonderful that folks get to love it from the outside and now on the inside, right?
Yeah, no, we would come here when I was younger, and my dad would take us to some shows, and we would go to, the Hartford. um, I don't know if it was a Coliseum. No, the conference center. And there were so many Islamic organizations that still to this
Wow.
day have a lot of the annual conferences in Hartford. And so we have been coming here for years, for those reasons, for either religious games that we would have, or conferences where people from all over the country will congregate here in Hartford. And so it really just felt like an extension of like what home was. And so, it's like a natural thing for me.
Yeah. And the fact that you're citing that, I'm also thinking about some other leaders that I've recently been reading about, both Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, right? Citing Hartford as this sort of religious epicenter, but thinking about the Islamic faith and then also thinking about Christianity, two different religions, but also still naming Hartford as a place that had some historical significance around being a spiritual epicenter for both of those figures. So very interesting that you're also pointing to that. I have another question.
Hmm.
Um, how do you feel that your work is making or contributing to Black history in the city of Hartford?
That is a good question.
Good
You
question.
know, to be honest with you, you never know if you're making a difference, right? I think that you always hope that you could leave a legacy. What that is, sometimes we don't really know. A lot of times, city employees or public servants, we go into this work knowing that we want to give back to the community. So that's what it's about for me, and most of us. I think that, growing up, it was a lack of representation for me. And I think that's probably what I provide most, is, representation. I think one of the first times that I realized I was making a difference is when I went into a school, and we had, like, they were talking about public health careers. And a lot of times people see my name and they'll see Ebony Jackson-Shaheed, right? And they kind of don't really know who the person is behind the name. And so I went into the school one time and we had this conversation, and we were talking to students. And there was this girl that came up and she was like, you're the director of health? And I said, yeah, how are you? And she was like, I didn't know you were Black. So I said, oh, okay. Well, that's okay. She said, oh, and you're Muslim. And, so she started asking me questions, and she was like, I didn't know that. And so I realized, there's something special to that. Like, I think, when people see me, I think they see opportunity. I think they see, barriers, coming down. And that, there's a chance that they can also, fill these shoes eventually. And so I don't know. It's one of those things where you never know exactly the mark that you'll leave. But I think, what I'm realizing is the places that I have been, I think my legacy probably will be, standardization and improving, quality of service or quality of care. I think that seems to be like, my mark. Um, and I think that's probably what I'll leave for our community. And I think that's really important because, especially where, a population or people have been left behind, to be able to contribute that, I think that's pretty big for me. But like I said in a previous panel, it's really, about conquering small wins. Obviously we all have these big, huge goals and things that we want to accomplish, but as long as I can contribute something and make it better for my community, then I'm all right with that.
Wonderful. And I think that representation is critically important, but I also know you to be bringing a dynamic energy. I've been seeing your commercials on my socials and on my TV late night when I'm rubbing my eye. I'm like, look at this. This is so wonderful. And it's so important to be able to get the message out because quality of life is like
It is.
foundational to any community, right? In terms of how people are feeling in their bodies and in their brains. And so you're definitely leaving a legacy in that respect. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you got on this pathway? Like, what other types of jobs did Ebony do en route to becoming the Director of Health and Human Services?
Oh my goodness. I've had so many careers. And I think, to be honest with you, I probably drove my family crazy with the amount of different career paths that I've had. I started out in education. So I was a health teacher for a few years. I taught in New Jersey. I taught in Brooklyn. And after I did, I was in the education realm. I went into community development. So I focused on like health policy and creating programs, which actually I loved because a lot of it was around food security. So I really enjoyed that. Very community driven. And then I moved on from community development to more of a behavior health. Some more community programming in Queens, and then behavior health. And so I think, to be honest with you, I don't really see them as completely different. I just see them as, different realms within public health. And I think, to be honest with you, I think I was preparing to be in the role that I'm in. Because I think within each of those, there was something to learn, right? To prepare me to be a director of a variety of different areas within public health. I think sometimes people don't often know what public health is. They just assume that it's just anything to do with health, right? Oh, public health practitioners or professionals, they just want you to have, to be healthy. How? What are the things that contribute to that? What are we talking about when it comes to public health? And it really encompasses the community health, the environmental health, disease prevention and surveillance. So all of these things encompass public health, and to be honest with you, behavioral health. And I actually have experience with all those things. And later on, I went and became an epidemiologist, and that's really what propelled me to land into this area that I'm in terms of leadership. I was doing some research, which I absolutely loved at the VA, Yale. And to be honest with you, during COVID, it was just a lack of epis. And so really everyone was like, we need these particular people that have this skill set that, study disease trends and populations. And what are they called? They're called epidemiologists. And before then, I don't think anybody knew what I did. Most people assumed I was some sort of specialist that worked in a hospital somewhere. Oh, are you, I don't know, what do you study? What kind of specialist are you? And then when COVID hit, to be honest with you, it changed the, trajectory for a lot of epidemiologists because we were needed, we were sought after. And that's really how I got my start in leadership, is bringing those skills to one of the largest, the largest municipality in Connecticut. And then, now I'm here.
And we're very happy to have you here.
Oh,
Um, feel very honored to be able to have such an array of just leaders with diverse perspectives and backgrounds and experience. Like, I would have never thought that you had been in the education arena, previously. Um, the community programming pieces make sense. Now, now I'm thinking about the commercial. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But the education piece, right? Definitely surprising. What do you find to be most meaningful about your position and about serving the residents of Hartford?
I think what's most meaningful is I think being in leadership, a lot of times there's a huge disconnect between community and our leadership positions. But I think for the director of health, we have the real opportunity to kind of be grassroots at the same time. So I really think that that brings a whole new perspective to my department, my division, and my position as a whole. Like I still have that connection to community and really, within the 10 essential functions of public health, which is, the basis for everything that we do, equity is always at the center. And so I think that that just keeps us grounded. And it also just adds another layer to my position. So I think that that makes us, unique, and it also makes my position very meaningful.
As you're speaking, I'm literally looking at the model that I printed out after the
Ah,
conversation that we had of the big rainbow wheel with equity right there at
yeah.
the center, and all of the ways in which that is kind of disseminated out into community. So critically important work, actual life-saving work. Before I came to the city of Hartford, I worked for a healthcare organization where I did equity, diversity, and inclusion learning. And I'm like, this is a space where this conversation is literally life-saving and life-changing.
Hmm.
Different types of care that people need based on their diet, which is based on their ethnicity, right?
Hmm.
Um, just all sorts of considerations, genetically predisposed, you know, diseases and things like that based off of race, ethnicity. It's just been really, really interesting to see how much this conversation around equity, diversity, and inclusion is critically important to health outcomes. So,
I think what's also important too is that what's great about us being at the table and being in these positions is that we can kind of spearhead those conversations. So a lot of times when you're talking about, health equity, um, major organizations or corporations kind of look at numbers. But I think when you have Black leaders in positions where they're at the table, they are actually looking at people, right? And they're able to bring another layer of experience, and say, well, this is how we can, handle the numbers. The numbers are going to be the numbers,
right,
but this is how we need to finesse the situation because it's more than just coming up with a solution or putting a plan on the table, right? You're actually talking about all the factors that are contributing to the situation. And so I think, Black leaders, we bring that to the table. And there's an example. I had a conversation where someone wanted to produce uh, um, a policy, and they said, you know what, this is the idea that we're having, right? And we think that this idea will contribute to decreasing this particular activity. And I said, well, you know what, that may be a great idea. However, being from the community and being, a child that grew up in areas of violence, I think that it's important to understand that these factors also contribute. And so if you reduce some of these factors, that's more beneficial than this particular policy, right? And so I say, you know what? We think you might be right. And so those are the things that we can bring. And since we're at the table, I think it's important for us to use our voice.
absolutely. Critically important to use your voices and your life experience as well, right? Especially when you're working with communities who look like you, communities that resonate with you, communities that you've grown up in. Um, That's why we're always encouraging folks in the city of Hartford to come on back and bring their talents home because nobody knows the community and a lot of times the way that the community members do.
Exactly.
So can you tell me why Hartford is meaningful to you?
So Hartford is meaningful to me because it's always been my capital city since, being born and raised in Connecticut. I also think that there's lots of opportunities here. My family also lives here. I live here. So I think that, now that it's become home, I think there's a little bit more of an investment in the community as well. Um, I think Hartford sometimes gets a bad rep. I think a lot of times we just look at, statistics or, yeah, certain representation, or we're looking at media, which paints places, to be a certain way. But I think that Hartford is special, like many other urban areas in Connecticut, and the fact that, the community has been resilient through all of these things. And so I think that just being a part of, change makes it, you know, that much more important to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a Hartford girl through and through, so oh, Team Hartford forever and a day. So, Director Jackson-Shaheed, it has been fabulous talking with you this afternoon. If you had maybe like one nugget of wisdom to give someone who is considering joining the City of Hartford or who's interested in working with Health and Human Services in Hartford or otherwise, what would you say?
This is so interesting. So I think we've had so many interviews lately, to be honest with you, and we do find that there is a trend with a lot of the candidates. And I'd say, to be honest with you, don't be afraid to apply. Like for some reason, and I don't know why, we're hearing, I've always wanted to work for the city. I've always wanted to work for the municipality. However, either, there's outside news, I may be, listening to, some outside chatter about what happens in the city, and or, I'm not sure of the process is going to take forever, these are some things that we hear. And to be honest with you, we always tell people, like, if you're interested in a position, and you have the qualifications, apply. Like, take the first step, and go through the process. I think it's well worth it. And also, really learn about the positions, really learn about the opportunities that are in Hartford. I know a lot of people want to get involved, but they don't know how. And so that's something we also tell candidates too. Like, there's plenty of opportunities here. To get involved, and that could be your foot in the door too for, applying for positions, is getting involved in community activities. Like, we always tell people, listen, we have these activities going on. Why don't you volunteer? Why don't you show up? You can introduce yourselves to different departments. If they see your skills, that you have, that may be a way for you to get recommended for a position as well. But show up and apply and get involved. So that would be my couple of nuggets that I would tell anyone.
Those nuggets are golden. I have to say, I started out, before I was even thinking about working in municipal government. I started out as a board member, right? I was serving on a community board, and then it just kind of evolved from there, right?
Exactly.
And now it's like the work that I was really passionate about as a volunteer, I get to be able to do. So I think that that is fantastic advice. Thank you so much for being willing to share your career path and journey with us here this afternoon in honor of Black History Month. We appreciate you. We're grateful to have you at the City of Hartford, and we look forward to talking more with you in the future.
Thank you. Anytime.
Thank you so much.